Welcome back with me, Dava, and today something happened in the world. Australia officially passed away a new law requiring digital platforms such as FB and Google pay for news content for local media and publishers that appear in news feed or search results. The policy is expected to become effective in the next few days after Parliament approved it as a rule called in the news media and digital platforms of mandatory bargaining code.
Been that Facebook and Google drive traffic to media websites. However, a recent report in Canada warned that media is being starved out of advertising revenue, with Google and Facebook controlling between 60 and 90% of the digital market.
This code of conduct will ensure the news media earn a fair income for the content they produce, helping to sustain journalists in the public interest in Australia. Australian Finance Minister Josh Fernberg and Australian Communication Minister Paul Fletcher said in a joint statement. They both also praised the results at negotiations between the Australian government and FB and Google reached recently in a commercial deal forming Australian news media business.
And that fight could get ugly, with Australian media reporting Facebook is warning it might block content rather than pay for it.
This policy was born because Australia saw injustice to the news media and publisher. The reason is Google and FB or Facebook have never created content or news, but they have benefited greatly by publishing news and content on these two platforms.
That would make Facebook and Google pay for journalism.
This is a huge reform.
Google and Facebook make a large share at the company digital advertising due to their wide use of platforms, while news agencies or publishers earn only a small fraction at Google and Facebook. The new law was a source of tension for Google and Facebook. Google said the rule was unworkable because it was not in accordance with Google's algorithm.
They're aiming high down under. Australian lawmakers will soon be voting on the News Media Bargaining Code, legislation that would make Facebook and Google pay for journalism.
This is a huge reform. This is a world first. And the world is watching what happens here in Australia.
The fight has been brewing for years in countries all over the world. The tech giants use articles and stories from broadcast and print media, yet don't share any of the ad revenue they generate with the companies that produce the work. And that's a significant amount of money. Combined, Google and Facebook control 76% of all online ad dollars in Australia.
Our legislation will help ensure that the rules of the digital world mirror the rules of the physical world.
Now, the counter-argument has long been that Facebook and Google drive traffic to media websites. However, a recent report in Canada warned that media is being starved out of advertising revenue, with Google and Facebook controlling between 60 and 90% of the digital market.
The fact is that these large communications organizations have been making money off the backs of Canadian journalists for years.
The News Media Canada report found that at the same time newspaper ad revenue plummeted 43% between 2014 and 2019, Google's ad revenues more than doubled, while Facebook's increased fivefold. And the Canadian Association of Broadcasters predicts TV and radio here at home will face revenue shortfalls of over $1 billion by 2022. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised to seek compensation for news content in the most recent throne speech, but media watchers say they'll likely wait and see what happens in Australia. And that fight could get ugly, with Australian media reporting Facebook is warning it might block content rather than pay for it, leaving the Australian government with no choice but to play hardball.
It may be for a time to limit access among Australians to having access to Facebook, which would not be a very popular move, I'm sure, but there are ways of pushing back against these large media companies.
You can bet lawmakers around the world are watching closely. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
See you again. Thank you.